Good afternoon and welcome to the July 22nd Duluth School Board Regular School Board meeting. We're calling this meeting to order today at 6:25. I will hand it over to Clerk Mike Cassell for roll call.
Member Banks.
Here.
Chair Durek Eater.
Here.
Member Loeffler Kemp.
Here.
Member Lofald.
Here.
I am Member Mikesell and I'm here. Member Sadowski.
Here.
Member Williams.
Here.
Superintendent Magus.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Bonds is excused. Deputy Clerk Zunich.
Present.
Executive Director of HR and Operations Severance.
Present.
Secretary Paquette.
She is here but stepped out momentarily.
Excellent. And our student representatives are excused tonight.
Thank you, Clerk Mike Cassell. Now we will move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Our flags are located in the back of the room. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda, we have the approval of agenda. Do I have a motion?
So, second.
Moved by Member Banks, seconded by Member Lofald. All, oh, was it? It was me. Okay, sorry. I heard it coming. Okay, Eden. Pull it together, Eater. Okay. It was moved by Member Loeffler Kemp, seconded by Member Lofald, screwed up by Member Eater. All those in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have an approved agenda. This month, we have no school.
I actually want to trade microphones with you because yours is buzzing really bad.
Oh, is it? Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Moving on this month, we have no school or community recognition. We look forward to that returning with the beginning of the school year. Moving on to the report of the superintendent. We have no, oh, that's John's deal. Okay. Superintendent Magus.
Yes. Let me just pull up and cast. So my report this month is relatively brief due to the limited number of committee meetings and various people, a lot of vacation and things that people take during this time, myself included, taking a little bit of time here and there. But as always, we have our superintendent's report, focusing on our mission, vision, and core values. The student representative reports, as we expressed earlier, will be on hold for July. They may resume in August, but is dependent on their availability and interest. Also talking a little bit about our cabinet work sessions that we've had, some board workshop updates, and just anything under other that people would like to discuss. I'd also mentioned that I had the pleasure of presenting at the National Superintendent's Forum with Executive Director Zunich, and it was actually something that we were invited to attend and present at a national conference, and they paid our way to do so. So that was a good experience, really great presentation, and I didn't. Executive Director Zunich's part was tremendously fine. I'm not sure about my own, but it was good, and we had a huge number of superintendents that were part of that roundtable, and it was very well received. And there were superintendents that taught in very small districts, but also one district with 200,000 students and one with 80,000. So it was really good collaborative conversation. But as far as our cabinet work sessions, we had one, and we're having one come up. Our work session on June 16th, we had a day at Lake Superior College. They are gracious enough to let us use the room there. We had some welcome and purpose building, a little bit of team building, We're reading a book called Crucial Conversations, and Todd McGowan, who you know from his role, he actually is teaching a course on that particular book, and so we had him come facilitate the first chapter. We also are working on our teaming calendars, just basically when are all the teams meeting, what does it look like, how do they flow into one another. We had some significant conversation putting that Crucial Conversations book into practice, working on how can we improve our communication flow and clarification of roles, just thinking about how sometimes when things get complicated, we need to make sure that we have clear plans. We had a working lunch, and then we worked on our 3-year operational plan, working at our action on our action cards, which will be at our cabinet session in July, which I'll talk about in just a minute. We talked about our next step for our vision card. The vision card is basically our dashboard of data of what are we using to make sure that we're delivering on our desired daily experiences. We talked about progress monitoring for the coming year, and also reviewed some things for our professional learning coming up. And then we had closure. The cabinet work session we have next week, it's next Wednesday. That's when we go really much deeper into that vision card work. And that vision card, we'll be bringing it to the board as soon as it's ready. But I think you'll be excited by it. It should be a really interesting dashboard of key measures, key performance indicators for us, so that you can, it will be outwardly facing, so it'll be something that the district can look at and the public can look at to see how we're doing. Then we will be finalizing those action cards, and the action cards are kind of we have our strategic roadmap and operational plan, which lays out the bulk of the work, but the action cards are more strategic plans for the main bodies of work within that nest within that larger framework. And then finally, we have our August Duluth leadership team. That's when all admin gets together, and we'll be finalizing that, as well as anything that's left for the professional development taking place in August. But that is our cabinet work session efforts. As you know, we had a board work session, and we met on July 8th, and we worked with Teamworks on board governance and other topics. We did, I think, because we went deep with our dialogue, we didn't get maybe quite as far as we were hoping, but I think sometimes it's better to go deep with our topics and make sure that we're having extensive, thoughtful conversation rather than trying to breeze over the surface. So I was very pleased that the board expressed interest in a second work session to continue that work and go a little deeper. And I know that Executive Assistant Paquette and others are working to find some dates with Teamworks for that possibility. So we'll have that coming up as well. Other board work that I know that we'll think about for closed session and things would be my final evaluation and things like that. So that'll be coming up, but that concludes my relatively brief superintendent's report for this month. Any questions or comments? All right.
Member Lowfold. So just want to thank you for the brief update, even though it's interesting. So 2 questions. Like, I'd love to know what the topic was of the presentation Simone and you did at this national conference.
Sure. And so it was actually on budget reduction process, the process we used, and also lessons learned. And I think, you know, we had kind of, so I think that there were certain things with the guiding change document that we used, but then we also talked about how did the process go? What did we learn from it that we wished we would have done or would have done differently? And then we also allowed for significant dialogue amongst the superintendents, just, you know, where are you at in your district? What are things that you do? And I'm not trying to toot our own horn, but we, like, throughout the next few days, had quite a few people come up to us and tell us how much they appreciated our presentation and wanted our materials. So really appreciate Executive Director Zunich and the work that she put in for that. And it was a steamy time in Orlando, Florida. I decided I do not really like Central Florida in the middle of the summer.
We'll see if we can be invited back at another time, and maybe you'd want some board members to come in.
Yes.
My real question, though, revolved around the board work, the workshop we did, and I think one of the things that Superintendent Meg has highlighted too is that that I would be interested in investigating this is, that was a really great workshop, and we have 4 on our calendars for every year, and we talked a little bit about that at our workshop, that we're glad we have those, but maybe there's times we could use more, even though we do meet a lot as a board. I really like that, but I also want to protect your life. But as I watch other boards on my sizzling Friday nights, watching YouTube board meetings of other districts, I realize that, not a lot of school districts have our committee of the whole, which I wouldn't exchange for anything. We talked about that at our workshop. I think that's really such an incredible, informative meeting. And I don't think a lot of boards have that. What they tend to have is what we have at least in my opinion, what we have at our committee of the whole meetings, they have at regular school board meetings briefly. Like the people will come forward from those. And I think we get a whole lot more presentation. But what it shortchanges us on is those workshops, because then school boards do have almost monthly workshops like we have those 4. So we, because, we don't get to dive deep sometimes into topics that we maybe could, because the committee of the whole is informative and we have lots of questions and we learn a lot. But we don't get into the questions we might have. But just an observation when you comment about, the board retreat. So just want to kind of keep that on our up and up.
Thank you. And we did carry forward the kind of consensus that we had from the board that we'd like to use more of the committee of the whole time so that there could be more dialogue. And so today, when we had our committee of the whole agenda setting, we did talk a little bit about making sure that we were prioritizing that we use some of that committee the whole time for those discussions, as opposed to just having like many really long presentations. So keeping the presentations a little tighter and more aligned to the strategic directions that we have, and the key updates there was important. And then thinking about, in some of my one-on-ones, some of the sentiments that I heard about. Quite often in meetings like, in our meetings, we'll say something like, oh, we should talk about that in our next work session. We should talk about that in our next work session. But there isn't enough time in our work sessions to get all that done. So thinking about how we can use our committee the whole time a little differently this year and see how it goes. That was something that we wanted to follow through with. And thanks to Member Mike Sell and Chair Derek Eater for following through with that as well.
Member Loeffler Kemp.
Oh, thank you. Well, I was going to ask the same first question that Member Loeffel did, just about the topic that you did it on. I know we had heard about it, but if you wanted to expand on it, so thank you for doing that. I wondered if the Crucial Conversations book is something that would be helpful for other groups to have some book reads on. I know we have our own book that we as a board are doing a book study on, but that.
Yes, we've talked about expanding it beyond this group, and either as a whole district read amongst our administrative teams, or at the very least offer opportunity for a voluntary, book club type of setting, so that we would have opportunity so that we could go more deeply into it. And basically the premise of the book is that organizations that can have the difficult conversations about the things that really matter sooner perform better. So if there's an issue that's in need of addressing, that it's better off just to find ways of having those conversations and do so in a thoughtful, respectful, professional way, but have that courageous conversation and constructive conflict as an organization that helps us be healthier. So I think there's many people it would benefit, and they also talk in the book how it can benefit, you in your personal life, when it comes to thinking about family relations and friendships and things like that. It's important for us to have that there. So it's a good book.
Yeah, it's a great book, so I would second it's spread out in different ways. And then my other question was, were we going to get notes from our retreat? I know we usually get notes after the retreat. We have sometimes. Yeah.
They share the slide deck, which has
Okay.
everything, so that, and then if we want note-taking during
Yeah,
the next.
Ray has given us notes before, yeah.
Yeah,
so.
oh, yeah, yeah, for like quite often kind of the summary at the end.
Yeah,
And next steps, yeah, I'm actually, I talked to him today about a couple other things, but I'll talk to him again and see that we can get that for our next retreat. And actually, I know Patty is working with their assistant and such on some things, so if you could ask for the notes from the retreat and see if we can get those out, because I think that can be, it's helpful. And I also appreciate the board really leaned in during the conversation. I know we talked about things that were important, and sometimes the important conversations are not always the easy conversations, and I really respect that people leaned in with trust towards one another.
Seeing no further questions, thank you, Superintendent Magus, for your report. Next on the agenda, we have the schedule of the meetings and the events for what's left in July. And now we'll move on to our reports of the Standing Committee. It is our practice in the month of July that we have no monthly Committee of the Whole, so we have no report there. Member Sadowski and the HR Business Services Committee are the lucky committee to get to meet in July, so we look forward to your report.
I was going to say, meanwhile, we had one of our longest meetings of the year, I think, on Monday, July 14th. We met here. We had a little bit of technology issues, and so we got out our owl, but I think we actually ended up recording it both ways, and it's on the YouTube for everybody to check out. At our school board meeting, as I've been saying, I gave the date. It's on YouTube. We go through our whole agenda. We had hundreds of pages to review, including some really important job descriptions, resolutions, as well as contracts. So I am just going to give some of the highlights, but I would encourage everybody to take a look at that meeting and where we went through everything. So the first piece I wanted to highlight was on our HR report. I just wanted to say again, congratulations to Tori Bremer, who's moving into an HR specialist role. Also, under the HR, we have reached tentative agreements in negotiations with the integration specialist and para-union units. We have initial negotiation meeting dates, and those are scheduled with the food service unit. And then negotiations are ongoing with principals, education directors, and our EEA group. So those are the things I wanted to highlight from the HR report. Under the child nutrition report, which was on page 5 in my big binder here, child nutrition was awarded a $31,000 grant for Myers-Wilkins for fresh fruits and vegetables. So I just wanted to lift that up and highlight that. Under our facilities report, on page 7, check that page out. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of summer projects going on to keep our buildings in good shape for our students. So I just wanted to highlight that. And then on our transportation report, fingers crossed, we had some updates on hiring. And at the very end of that report, you'll see that we're looking to be nearly fully staffed for the fall. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed on our transportation, which would be great news. I'm always saying how much we appreciate all of our staff and our bus drivers. You know, they're one of the first faces our students see, and I know when I grew up, I had only 2 bus drivers, K through 12, and really appreciated them. So I'm happy to see that we're near fully staffed. Any questions so far on any of those reports or comments? Okay.
Just a side comment, you were mentioning the owl and attendance and thinking about that, and just for the public and for the board, something we clarified just this week when we thought we might have a board member who might not be able to be present and whatnot. There's a new legislative change that allows board members to participate remotely without it being posted that they will be remote, and without needing to post the location and have it open to the public. So if there's an emergency circumstance for anybody in the future, And I know that's a huge aside from what you were talking about, but I wanted to make sure that I shared it before we forgot about the owl and thinking about that effort. So,
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing that up. That's good to know. And I just realized I kind of skipped ahead because we normally do start with our department reports. But the reason why our meeting on the 14th was so long is that we also had some really important guest presentations that day. The first guest presentation was from Marsh McLennan Agency for a commercial insurance renewal. So you'll also see a resolution later on in our resolutions about that. Representative Bob Arnold was there, and he presented about a lot of our insurance coverages, and we got to ask some good questions. We are having, I think it was an 11%, somewhere in there, increase. Yep, 11.5% increase in our insurance. And then we did have a question that came up as far as cybersecurity. I know that our districts always, our technology staff are always doing a really good job to try to prevent that, but we did decide to increase, is that an increase, Simone? Yep,
Excuse me, it's option 2 by
Yep.
38,000.
perfect.
Yes.
Thank
It's
you.
highly recommended, and they're taking good care of us, and I know it's very important. In fact, our technology team, our security specialist, is working with all the departments now to make sure we have password security, and that person also worked closely with Marsh McClellan to go through our cyber security and liability insurance to make sure we're meeting everything. So I think Peter was part of that too.
Perfect, thank you. And I know when we've gone down to our trainings, to MSBA, there are often cybersecurity sessions that we've gotten to go to. I know I've attended a couple, and we've also read articles in the paper, Star Tribune, about districts that have experienced a cyber attack, and we want to make sure that we're very protected and covered, and so I think that that's a really good move. So thanks to our staff for working on that, and we appreciate that Bob was here to kind of give us an overview on that. Our second presentation was a guest presentation from our own facilities director, Brian Brown, and we also had Pat Overham from ICS there, and that was a presentation about our long-term facilities maintenance 10-year plan. And again, you will see a couple resolutions related to that, which I can speak to in a little bit under our resolutions. But we had, everyone should have had a chance to look at that. That is a plan that we look at every July. We review our LTFM plan and we approve it as we see fit. We are required to update, approve, and submit our 10-year LTFM plan to the Department of Education, and we're required to let them know how much we intend to levy or bond for this process. This plan needs to be in to MDE by July 31st, so we will be voting on that tonight. And just a little bit of history, I gave this at the meeting, but a history of the LTFM process. It was started by the state of Minnesota in 2017 as an extension of the original health and safety alternative facilities process for districts to utilize for facilities needs. So any questions or comments on that? And we can open it up for discussion when we get to resolutions too, but, okay. And then our third guest presentation was Jen Larva, our Director of Secondary Education, was there to speak to our school resource officer contract for FY26 through 28. And that contract obviously has been on our board book for everyone to review.
Do we have any questions for Member Sadowski? Chair Sadowski.
Okay, if not, I'll keep going. There's more. Wait, there's more. Chair Eater. I'm trying to go fast. Nope, that's okay. I did want to note the resolutions that kind of are the counterparts to some of those guest presentations. For me, they're on page 14. So but it also, you can see that in our table of contents. We have a resolution for our FY27 long-term facilities maintenance 10-year plan. We have the counterpart to that, another resolution regarding the issuance of general obligation capital appreciation facilities maintenance bonds. So that's giving permission to bond. Counterpart to that LTFM plan. And then we have a resolution for commercial insurance renewal. We have our resolution for donations to Duluth Public Schools, and we have our resolution for the acceptance of grant awards to Duluth Public Schools. And then, let's see here, we had a few different job descriptions on page 50 that we looked at. The Director of Advancing Equity, the American Indian Coordinator position, and then we also, on the consent agenda, had our Teachers on Call contract amendment, which added the ability to find subsecretaries and maintenance, because those are always kind of hard positions to not have around. They're really important, and sometimes they're hard to find sub for, so that's really going to be helpful. There was no financial report this month. That will resume in the next month or two. And then on page 56, we had all of our contracts. So just to kind of go over them, we had several that had to do with like special education. So you can look at those. There was a lease for the Washington Center for Early Childhood, which I've always really appreciated that we have early childhood in the Washington Center. I kind of spoke to the fact that it's really accessible. I've brought a lot of youth and their children there over the years, and it's just a really great program and a great location. So I was happy to see that. And then we have our contract for our school resource officer. And there's a lot more in there, but you can watch the whole meeting where we discussed it all in detail. But any other questions about our HR? Member Lafleur-Kemp?
Not a question so much as great report, too. Just about the School Resource Officer Program, I just have really appreciated the updates we've been getting throughout the year on this and on the process with the School Resource Officer Program Agreement, but also the updates that they are sending out to the community and on our website, the section we have on there on kind of the role of school resource officers and the variety of roles that they play in terms of building relationships with our students and staff. So just a comment on that. I look forward to that continuing.
Great, thank you. I've also appreciated getting the data from all those reports. So, great. Oh, Member Lofel?
Just a comment about Teachers on Call, working with our substitute custodial and transportation, yes? Secretarial and custodians and clerical, okay. Have we had that? Has somebody else been doing that in HR, contacting subs, or do we go without them when we have vacancies?
I'll let Teresa.
We have a few retirees that are willing to come back on occasion, and we do that contact through the Human Resources Department, but it is few and far between and definitely doesn't fill the need. Otherwise, they go unfilled.
I'm just imagining all of our elementary schools with the preschools and not having that secretary there to greet everybody. Yeah.
And I
this'll be good.
can speak to that just from the experience we all have with our children in there and in the schools, is that, yeah, I think there's always been an expectation that, I think they get their own subs. If they know someone that's retired, they'll ask HR to reach out, or they just don't. There's just no expectation that there'll be a clerical in that seat on a day that they have to be gone. And so I'm glad that we're able to support that, because they have needs to be out of the building just like everybody else. So I would be nice to have an update on Teachers on Call for both our substitutes in the classroom and then clerical and maintenance, and see how they're doing.
Superintendent Magus?
Sure, and we're going to be finishing our annual review of the program, And just for informational purposes, Teachers on Call is changing their name they're to Kelly Services. They work with Kelly, and so they're just, it's part of their branding and whatnot. But we've been relatively impressed with Teachers on Call. I think it was a change in practice that took a little bit for people to get used to, but once people got used to it, I think people are think of it very favorably. And what I do like that I think would be helpful even for this type of situation with clerical and other, is that there's a lot of training opportunity, both online training and other things for support that subs didn't used to get before. And so I think it's helpful.
Member Loeffler-Kemp, do you still have a question? Okay, great. Seeing no other questions, we'll give the superintendent a minute to dry his tie off there and move on to, we had no policy committee meeting this month. The policy committee will resume their important work in August. Now we'll move on to general, General board committee updates. Do any of our members have any general board committee updates? Member Sadowski.
No significant updates. I would just say that we were, emailing on our intergovernmental committee, and we all agreed that we would just take, we won't be, it's really busy right now for a lot of the folks on that, the city councilors, the county commissioners, and us. So we're taking a break and we'll resume in September.
That's great. Seeing no other general committee updates, let's go ahead and move on to the consent agenda.
May I, excuse me, I'd like to remove an item for further clarifying and just making sure that the constituents I serve in the district have information that's necessary for 1.B.2.D.1, and that is the City of Duluth School Resource Officer, SRO, fiscal year 2026 through 2028 contract. I would like to have further clarification and conversation on that.
Great, thank you, Member Banks. So we will remove from the consent agenda. I just had that written down as well. The agenda item that Member Banks removed from the consent agenda. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda without the item that Member Banks pulled from the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second? We have a motion by Member Lofald, a second by Member Williams. Do we have any discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the consent agenda as modified, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The consent agenda has passed. We will now move on to the agenda item that Member Banks pulled, which is the contract with the City of Duluth for the school resource officer.
Thank you.
You bet.
I just have a couple of questions and need further clarification with regard to this contract. And I'll just start on the first there, which is Article 2, funding of the school resource officer program. We know it's a 3-year contract. It's in my opinion, quite expensive. When I added up the total cost for the 3-year contract, it comes in a little bit over $1 million. It's $1,066,278. And so I would like for the superintendent and others at the table to talk a little bit more about that for our constituents and kind of explain what that is all about, because there were some significant increases in the cost of the SRO.
Sure, I can talk about the finances a little bit, and Jen Larva worked as well on the contract, so she is, Director Larva is up here with me as well, if there are things that she wants to answer as well. So basically, in a nutshell, we've been paying for 80% of the salary of the officers over the past few years, and we paid for, I think, 3% of the lieutenant that was overseeing it. We've kept to that same model of paying for 80% of salary, but the salaries for our SROs through the city were negotiated at a higher rate. So basically, we're still paying the same percentage, but because of the high demand for police officers, the pay for police officers has risen significantly. So basically, we're still paying 80%, but that it's 80% of a larger number because of what they've negotiated for contract. So we know that there were other things that they would have liked to have us cover, and we negotiated in district favor to keep it limited to the scope of what we've done in the past, related to the percentage we've done in the past, rather than specifically changing there. We also recognize, however, that those percentage increases are more than our teacher increases, but that's what the city had negotiated with their police officers for their contracts. We did have a little interesting conversation today because when we looked at the contracts on the website, the actual straight-up salary percentages appeared to be a little bit lower than what we see here, but when there were other things built into the contract that were so when you look at the total package, the salary was the 7%, the 4.5%, and the 5%. So we investigated that thoroughly because we didn't want to tell you that we were doing the percentage increase and then have that percentage increase be higher than what is reflected on the page. I'm not sure if Teresa or Simone, if there's anything you'd add, or?
No. Yeah, the way it was explained to us, that there are other paragraphs within the contract, that there are certain types of officers that work every day, every hour of every day, or an 8-10-hour day, and they get an extra piece of their salary for doing that work. So when you total it up, it comes to the 7%, the 4.5%, and the 5%. The base salary, which we all know how that works, we have base salaries as well, was the 2.5, 2, or and whatever it was for the 3 years. So what we're seeing online is their base salary, but there are other pays to the officers that are built in within the contract.
Can I add, through our negotiations with the city, we're not paying for any of the benefits either. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. That is just that 80% of the salary.
Okay. So my next question or concern is whether or not, as I looked at this contract a few times, is there any indication in the contract that would suggest that the SROs have trauma-informed education or a trauma-informed background? The reason I ask that question is we have a lot of students that come from a variety of homes and backgrounds, and I want to just make sure that our SROs have that training. If they don't have that training, could we provide some kind of provision for them to get that training?
Yeah, there was some language in there around the different kinds of training that I think got cleaned up a little bit. So it's not specifically stating that they were going to be attending all school district trainings. I think that was in a previous contract. But they do have to attend SRO training, and they do a lot of the responsive training through the DPD. They've kind of made the same commitment that we have of doing some of the trauma-informed practices. And so they assured us that that is also happening on their end, because they are Duluth Police Department employees. They're receiving the same training that their whole department is receiving.
Okay. So,
I want to clarify too. So there was, in our previous, contracts generally spell out the provisions of the work and the finances, and they don't always go into the deep details of everything. And so when Director Larva talked about the cleaning up the contract, there's another document that is being worked on that outlines that further, because it's kind of like when we do policy work, how sometimes there's a lot of managerial and other language that we decide later, let's pull that out of the policy and put it into a regulation. We decided something similar with this contract, and we want to make sure that we have that documented with the DPD, but that it is not something that would normally be spelled out in that degree of specificity in a contract. So when we look at what our expectations are, we expect, the DPD does do significant training for their officers in a wide variety of areas that are partially adjacent to what you're talking about, but we also talk to them about making sure that they're getting trained up in the trainings of our district, whether it be implicit bias training or trauma or those de-escalation, because we agree with you, we want to make sure that that is well supported.
All right, thank you. And that does include the cultural trainings regarding the largest non-white demographics in ISD 709 schools are Native heritage and African American heritage. So does that additional document include having full knowledge and understanding of those cultural groups? And if so, what would that look like?
I think we would have to look into it for the details, but part of it is it's an alignment for what it's aligned for what we're teaching our staff too, and that is something that we focus on with our staff. We had significant training on American Indian education and diversity, equity, and inclusion, and other things. Particularly the October training that we had was very, very deep in that, and I'm fumbling. It's been kind of a long day, and so I'm fumbling a little bit with words. But basically, the way you express, have full knowledge of culture. It's hard to have full knowledge of a culture, but we want to make sure that they have significant understanding so that they can begin and continue their journey of examining their implicit biases, their reaction and knowledge of certain cultures, their interaction with certain knowledge and cultures. I think it goes beyond just that too. I think thinking about working with neurodivergent students, for instance, the way that you de-escalate a neurodivergent student as opposed to a neurotypical student is different too. So we want to make sure that our training for our SROs is broad and thoughtful, related to the differences within our students.
Okay, I have two more questions, and I'll get out of your hair on this.
No problem.
Under 4.1, letter J, it says, if an SRO separates from employment, city will fill the vacant position with a qualified candidate as soon as possible. I'm hoping moving forward that there can be an actual timeline in there as to when that will be accomplished.
Yeah, this was a topic of a lot of discussion, a thorough discussion related to this. I don't know, I think it just came out recently, like there's 26 officers that they are short on the DPD or something. I mean, it just came out that I saw in the news. So they're always facing shortages as well. We do have the sergeant, the community policing sergeant, who will step in. He may not be able to be there the whole day, but he does step in. They also have shared responsibilities, so like the Lincoln Park SRO might go over to Denfeld and support them as needed. So we did have great conversation around that. At this point in time, they don't feel like they can offer us a timeline.
I think too, and I appreciated you sharing some of these questions with me ahead of time. It allowed us to think about it and reflect. And one of the things that we discussed as well with the DPD is our shared desire and the shared desire for the outcome that we have people that are not just superficially qualified, but they're actually a good match for this, that they have an interest in it, because we don't want to just stick a patrol off, nothing against patrol officer by any means, but we don't want to just randomly put an officer into the position that doesn't have understanding or interest in working in this position, because it takes a special person to be a really strong school resource officer, and we're really lucky right now, and sometimes when there's a vacancy, we want to make sure that we take the time to find the right person rather than move it along so quickly and put the wrong person in place.
I have just one more question, seriously. So moving forward, I would like to see if it's possible for our SROs, if we can put this in the contract or kind of negotiate this, provide a monthly report on ticketing, especially to the school board, as opposed to a quarterly report, so that we can see monthly what's happening in our schools. And because of the disproportionality of tickets being given to African American and Native heritage students, that has data that supports that. If we can get that to the board or to the necessary entities within the district, it gives us a better opportunity to start to really focus on that school to prison pipeline that very much affects our children of color. Is that something that could be looked into?
So my understanding is that we get a monthly report as far as our tickets, and so that gets posted on our website. If you would like it to be sent to you directly, they do send me the reports every month. I can just make sure that you're getting it at the same time that I'm getting it. I also have made the request. I know that you are on my SRO advisory, and we have talked about some of the touches that they have, like the data surrounding like how many interactions they've had with students and some of the different pieces of that. I've asked for that to be more regularly provided to us as well, so I could also share that when they do provide me with that information.
All right, thank you very much, and I'm satisfied. I appreciate the responses. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Member Loeffler Kemp, and then Member Sadowski, followed by Member Micah Sill.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, good discussion, as we always have had around this topic. I wanted to thank you, Jen, just for the work on negotiating this contract. I know a lot of time was spent on that, and I just really appreciate that you're honoring the City of Duluth Police Union contract as well. So that's really important to me. I was wondering if, under the training, when we've kind of talked about district training that they attend, maybe it would be helpful, just based on some of the comments that have been made, for us to get a list of that as part of an update at the end of the year, what, trainings that the different officers have had done that were district-wide on some of those topics you maybe mentioned.
Yeah, I can make that request pretty easily.
And then the other thing, under H, 4.1H, where it talked about newly assigned SROs will attend the SRO-specific trainings, such as NASRO's basic SRO course, which I think we all have understood that SROs do get a lot of training that are chosen to become SROs, but that might be helpful maybe to just find out what that training entitles, what topics they cover.
I feel like, and this might have happened before I was in charge of the SRO project, that you have gotten updates from the SROs. Is this something that you'd like me to communicate to, like, when they do an annual update?
No, I was just saying they do that training, and I know when we had some other further in-depth conversations on SROs over the years, we did get, I think it was kind of a list of what was kind of generally covered for SRO, the training that they provide through the National SRO Association. So that's all. It would be more for informational. And just again, I really, appreciate the work our SROs do in building relationships with our parents, with our students, with our staff in our district.
Director Larva, I was wondering, just for our community and maybe just as a reminder for us all here, how do we continue to just assess the SRO program just on an ongoing basis, specifically getting student feedback and things like that? Especially if you could talk to, and if you can't, that's okay, but to different affinity groups within our student groups, how do we get their input and feedback?
Yeah, thank you. So this was my first time taking over the SRO advisory, and we only actually met twice. The first time we looked at the evaluation tool, kind of revamped the checklist to make it more easier for us to do. Like, we needed to actually complete an evaluation of the program. And so we worked on that and completed that this year. So it's an annual, we're supposed to be doing annually, like evaluating the program and sharing that with our advisory committee. I met with the principals. And that's really kind of how we did that. We did do the student survey to get data and information, student and family surveys. Didn't get as much information as we really had hoped to receive, and our advisory group did talk about that. It's a lot on our students in the spring to ask them to complete surveys. We had the state survey that had come out. We had our climate survey. We had the SRO survey. I mean, it's a lot on our students. And so we really did not get the participation that we had hoped. We thought that by connecting it to our school climate survey that we'd get more responses, and in actuality, we got less. So that is one of the conversations that we did have, was like, how can we get to more of the affinity groups? How can we maybe do more of like one-to-one interviews with kids or group interviews with kids? So we had that conversation at our last meeting, and that's kind of what we're going to plan on for next year, was to revamp how we're getting that feedback.
Thank you for speaking to that. And I know Superintendent Magus, you've been speaking about doing like a citywide city council, or I might have the term wrong, but that could be maybe a topic of conversation to have there potentially. Just a thought.
Right.
Not-
And actually, Director Larva has been helping with that effort as well, thinking about how are we going to work to create that intra-district student council. And we've met with student groups, and we've had conversation. We're kind of on a little bit of a pause over the summer, but we want to make sure that we go deep into it right away in the fall once our students are back, so that we can get it up and running for this next school year.
Great, thank you. And then just one last really quick yes or no question. Are we still going to be getting the SRO newsletter?
Yes,
Okay, thanks.
I'm assuming so.
The SRO newsletter, is that something that Adele sends out?
That was something the police
Police
department.
department
Oh, the police
would
department
send
sent
out,
out?
and
Okay, yes.
I was just searching in my email, and I didn't feel like our last one was in October. And I think before that, we were getting them a little more, maybe quarterly, and I really appreciated those newsletters, unless I missed one. So
I think that would be something.
it had the data.
That wasn't on my
to them.
radar, so you've put it on my radar, so that's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know his name? If you search his name, I think, what's the name of the community? Yeah, Jammer.
I appreciate this discussion that we've been having. I have two questions. One, Superintendent Magus, you talked a lot about the officers being able to participate in our school district trainings, or some of our professional development days in which we talk about different subjects that Member Banks was kind of referring to. I'm glad that that's happening. One thing I've noticed, though, in our new contract is some of the language that states that job duties of SROs will include going to staff meetings and participating in other events with the school has been removed. So if that's something that we want to make sure that continues going forward, that might be something to consider in the next contract, making sure that's very explicit, that the expectation is that they're participating in some of those professional development days and subjects.
Sure.
Second, just from a fiscal lens, obviously we recognize that law enforcement is going through challenges recruiting, like over these last few decades, and one of the incentives is offering higher salaries. And so we can't control the salary that the city has agreed to pay law enforcement officers, including those who are SROs. But recognizing that every time they do offer them an increase, it impacts our budget, it impacts the finances we're paying. and we're giving 7% increases now. The last 2 years, we'll give another 7% increase this year, 4.5 next year, 5 the year after that. Is there ever a chance during conversations and negotiations of talking about that percentage that the district is obligated to pay when we're not necessarily able to directly say how much their total package is worth? We're not making that, we're not able to negotiate directly with law enforcement, but anyway.
So we did engage in some of those conversations, and I don't want to go too much into like what their first offers were and our first offers were and such, but there was, as with most negotiations, there was a back and forth about certain things, and there were pretty significant asks that they were looking for as far as an increase beyond what they're asking for here, that they feel is justified. For instance, the 3% that we're paying for the sergeant who oversees the program, there's a sentiment that he spends far more than 3% of his time there, and they were actually hoping for a considerable amount more than that. But we felt that because we were locking in, we didn't want to increase that part significantly. So it was a little bit of a trade back and forth to some extent. I think they would argue very hard against us paying less than that 80%. I think that they feel that, you know, I think too, and this is at least our second, I think our third time through that we've done SRO contract, because when I started, we did a 1-year extension, then we did a 3-year, and now we're going on to the next 3-year, if I remember correctly. But I think if we are I think that the rates are going to continue to go up for what we pay in SRO contract, and if we did get to a point where we wanted to go down a different path, I think we would need at least a year or two to explore other options and make sure that we had solid supports in place rather than change things like over the summer. So I think having continued dialogue as to whether or not we can afford, we know the price is going to keep going up, and so I think we have to have some conversations as a district and with the board, saying if we know the price is going to continue to go up, does the board want us to explore other options? Because there are cities that do have other options. I'm not recommending that at this point, but that's, I don't know, it's just kind of I don't mean to say it's just the way it is, but it's the kind of the financial reality of where things are, particularly with the city budget, and it does seem that their salaries are outpacing ours to some extent, particularly with the police officers, and I think it's partly due to the risk involved, and also I think sometimes the sentiments around the country, and sometimes that's what we're hearing, at least from the police department, is it's harder to recruit for the job because it's seen in a somewhat different light now than it was years ago. So I think I'm kind of meandering here, but I'll try and land the plane. The rate, it's going to keep getting more expensive for us, and I think it will be hard for us to argue too much against that 80%. Because that's the amount of time that they spend out of their contracted year in the building. But we can continue to try harder with our negotiations, and if we get to a point and if the board has feedback that they want us to do something different, we'll be glad to look into it.
Thank you.
Member Loeffler-Kemp and Member Lofold.
Yeah, I was also wondering, Director Larva, when you talked about doing a student and family survey and surveying the principals, is there a route to survey our staff on the role just on the SROs, I guess, and a similar survey, I guess? Because I know as we had community meetings around this a few years back, a lot of staff participated in those meetings, and you know, they're the ones in the buildings working with our kids directly, and so I would encourage us to hear from them as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and it had not been something that we talked about. We've only really talked about families and students, but it's something that I can add to the agenda for our meeting in the fall.
Member Lowfald.
Thank you for that update, too, because I think, how many of us are on the board? Is there 4 of us that went through the Marnita table and the whole kind of year and a half? Is there 4 of us? Is it, Member Sadowski, were you on the board?
Community member, and then we were still wrapping that up when I got
Okay.
on the board.
So a lot of our, my perception comes from that process where we did do a deeper dive into surveys, a deeper dive into affinity groups and staff groups, and, and it was still hard. There were still recommendations from Marnita Tables Consulting that, needed to be addressed by the Duluth Public Schools, and we got a lot of headway, and that's where a lot of the advisory committee comes from. That's where the checklist and stuff comes from. And so, I think this is a good conversation. It's time. I think what Member Mikesell brings up has been discussed even in the last contract negotiation where, I think there was even at that contract, the city kind of overstepped as well and only, wanted a 1-year contract. And so there was, so always been some big discussions about what we pay for our SROs. So I'm glad even that, Superintendent Magus says, maybe, we cannot wait. We have to have a plan if in 3 years something needs to change because financially it's just pricing us out of. But the thing I will share with fellow board members is the more that we ask for more accountability, more professional development, then that's where the 80% comes from. So be careful not necessarily, we need to know things, but if you're going to go from a quarterly report to a monthly, or I think there is a monthly, the newsletter, the sergeant who oversees, that's a new position totally, I believe, in the last 4 years because of the board's decisions, but also our community that came forward that said they wanted, more communication with the school board and with the district. And so the SROs don't have time to do that. So they hired this Sergeant Mike Jambor, and there's been another one before him as well. So there has been added cost because we want more accountability. So the 80% might seem high, but yet we are asking more of them than we did 6 years ago. So they do get a little bit more, that's why the percentage goes up. So I'm not saying we're doing anything wrong, or I'm not saying we should do anything different. I'm just saying in my mind, I think we went through the 2-year journey with really deep diving into SROs and found that they are by and large desirable by our community and by the school board, and that they serve a really good process. We just had conversation in the HR business about our safety. I think it was more safety in property insurance, but safety is a big part of our board work, and SROs offer that option for us right now. And so I'm just, there's been great conversation. Everybody that added something, it's really important, and I really am glad we're going to continue. I served on the advisory committee, and we were meeting more regularly. But again, the more Sergeant Director Tuscan was there in the beginning, and now it's Chief Sanoa. The more we ask of them to come, the more compensation they want or need. It's a respect thing if they're going to come to more meetings of the district, and I don't know. It's kind of what we have to do, but it's certainly worth a journey of investigating if we can't always control what the city is giving for their raises, so the 80% might be okay, but when their salaries are high, then it's a lot of money. But I really would love, and you don't need to give me this right now, Member Banks, but I just have a hard time believing that the 4 SROs and the sergeants' salaries or the cost comes to over $1 million for our district.
It is.
But-
over 3 years.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Very significant, right? I just wanted to clarify.
Member Banks? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, clarify something. So my request for the monthly ticket analysis stuff is solely to have a handle or get a handle on that, because the data that I reviewed over the last year indicated that the issuance of tickets by our SROs, the students that were getting those tickets customarily were African-American kids and Native American kids. And those kids were on the western part, in the western part of our community. And so I'm concerned about that. That's a disproportionality. And so we, as a school district, need to get a handle on that.
And I would just share that the 2 years I sat on advisory, the data wasn't conclusive in that area, Member Banks, and that I think we have to be careful when we make kind of these general statements when we don't have the data sitting in front of us, that we give that message to our community. I understand your passion and your service, and I respect that. But I also sat on that committee too, where the principals do talk about it, do look at the data, and there's just a lot. There's just a lot of things about how you collect data, and who's collecting it, and who's reporting it, and how often. And some suggest that not everybody turns in the data, so it looks a little bit more skewed. So you have to be careful about making huge generalizations without our school district here, especially our principals, who are the ones, kind of in the buildings where disruptions and potential need for SRO work is there. So I'm just sensitive about that as well, because I've sat there as well and I taught in that building or in the western part. So I just want to caution us to not have sweeping generalizations when the people here that could explain it better and show the actual numbers. And we met more as an advisory than 2 times. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. We had a lot of meetings and a lot of people didn't come. And so it was my suggestion at one point to limit the amount of advisories, and maybe we'd get the people at the meetings. It was always a few teachers, the principals, and the SROs. And we needed more at the table. So I appreciate that as well. But we were getting those information and have rich conversation about the topics, Member Banks, that you talk about. And there were significant conversations from our teachers and our staff in the buildings discussing about the ratios and about that need.
Member Banks.
Thank you. And just to be clear, not a generalization. What I just shared with you is factual data that is available. As a person that sits on the SRO Advisory Committee, I've seen the data. The data suggests that the students who are getting the tickets disproportionately are African American and Native American students in the western part of our city. That's factually correct. And we have that information, and I wouldn't be saying it if it were not factually correct. I don't do generalizations, especially with regard to this topic.
Superintendent Magus.
So I think that there, in Duluth, like in many parts of the country, and there are quite often there's a correlation between areas with greater poverty and populations that have had generational poverty and trauma, and there being sometimes more significant events of disciplinary events and behavioral events and sometimes police events. And that's, I think, part of the reason why you think it's important for us to make sure that we continue to train up on trauma and culture and things like that. Personally, even myself as a principal, when I looked at my own data, there were disproportionalities And I think part of it is because we need to look into those root causes too, to see, like, if we're working with students that maybe have had significant trauma or generational poverty or things like that that are affecting, what are we doing to make sure that our staff are not unintentionally setting people off, or that they have as many tools in their tool belt as possible to deal with the situation. I think we need to do the same with our SROs. But again, even looking at my own data, sometimes it was disproportionately skewed towards students of poverty, special education students, students of color. And I think it's important to go deeper with the data too, to look at what were the preceding events, what led up to that, because sometimes we realized it was, I mean, I would love to go more deeply into it, but basically what I'm saying is that there are disproportionalities, and we do need to continue to address them. And I think that I would also say that on behalf of the police department and the district, I think that we've worked hard to address those, and we've reduced the disproportionality, but there still are disproportional outcomes for the kids. So we're committed, and I think the police department needs to be and is committed on doing that. And I would also say that I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the police department is doubled down on relationship building, and you see it in many ways when you're at Denfeld or you're at East, and or you're out in the community and there's the community policing bus at the Juneteenth, and like I think that we are lucky to have a police department that is trying hard to reduce those disproportionalities, and those are things. There's still much work to be done. Same as our school district, we have very disproportionate academic outcomes for our students, and we're making progress. But when those disproportionalities have been there for many years, and when they're so significant, we need to also keep a sense of urgency around it so that we continue to address it as well. So it's multifaceted, and we will continue to work to address it.
Can I interject? I just would like to share that during the 21-22 school year, there were 115 citations that had been issued. This past year, we had 18. So we've made some significant improvements, and yes, we do have more Black and brown students that are receiving citations, and they are coming from the western side more often than not. I would agree. When you take a look, you can look at the website and you can see that. But we are significantly down, which is a celebration, and we did talk about that at the advisory committee as well.
And I guess that was the point I was trying to make, is that I have known that it has reduced so well, or so many, that I felt that the disproportionality isn't as significant as I guess I thought you were implying. So, good to know.
And I would also say, we spoke at the COW agenda setting meeting today, and we will be having an SRO presentation coming up, and I think this will be a fruitful discussion to continue then. And then lastly, I would just say that perhaps as part of that discussion or moving on, that we all collectively get a good idea, or we collectively define when we talk about data, just because I think it is always a good idea that everybody, especially at this table, has a common understanding of what data we find to be relevant and important, and that will help us shape policy and shape what it looks like to have an SRO in our school moving forward. So I think that's something that, as part of this new work session / COW meeting that we're trying to do, that is something that we can add to that agenda. I'll keep that on my mind, and we can do that work together collectively. So, seeing no further discussion, do we have a motion to approve the SRO contract?
So moved.
Member Lofall's moved it. Do we have a second? I'll seconded it. Do we have any discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the approval of the SRO contract, please signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries. We have a approved SRO agenda. Thank you. Contract, thank you. Contract. Moving on now, we will be looking at a resolution from the committee reports. Member Sadowski. Yep.
That's good. All right, am I moving, oh, I have the wrong one. Here we go. I'm going to move Resolution B-7-25-4109, a resolution for the FY 2027 Long-Term Facilities Maintenance LTFM 10-year plan.
Member Sadowski has made the motion. Do I have a second? Member Loeffler Kemp has seconded. Do we have any discussion? Do we have any discussion? No, I can't. That just busted out in my head for some reason. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the FY 2027 Long-Term Facilities Maintenance 10-year plan, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Wapa. Okay, moving on. Just breathing into that. We have a resolution B-7-25-4108. This is a resolution regarding the issuance of general obligation capital appreciation facilities maintenance bonds, Series 2025A. I move that resolution forward. Do we have a second?
Second.
Member Sadowski seconds it. Do we have any discussion regarding the issuance of general obligation capital appreciation facilities maintenance bonds? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of Resolution B-7-25-4108, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, next we have Member Lowfald.
I move Resolution B-7-25-4110. It's a resolution for the fiscal year 26 on commercial insurance renewal. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District Number 709, St. Louis County, the FY 2026 commercial insurance renewal is approved.
Do I have a second? Second. Member Micasel. It's been moved by Member Lowfall, seconded by Member Micasel. Do we have any discussion? Any hot topics related to our insurance? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of Resolution B-7-25-4110, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Member Micasel.
I move Resolution B-7-25-4111, the acceptance of donations to Duluth Public Schools.
Do we have a second? Member, it has been moved by Member Micasel, seconded by Member Williams. Do we have any discussions on our great donations to the Duluth Public Schools? The only discussion I have is to thank all of the members of our community who support our schools. Seeing no further, Member Sadowski?
No, just getting ready.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of Resolution B-7-25-4111, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Member Sadowski.
I move Resolution B-7-25-4112. It's a resolution for the acceptance of grant awards to Duluth Public Schools.
Member Sadowski has moved. Do we have a second? Member Loeffler Kemp has seconded. Do we have any discussion about the great grant awards that we are going to be receiving here at the Duluth Public Schools? Member Loeffler Kemp?
Not really a discussion, but I just want to acknowledge that this is from our new director of, Executive Director of Duluth Community Schools Collaborative, and it's to support the Restorative Practices Initiative at Lincoln Park Middle School. And that's just really significant for that school, for that community, and also is a new ED to receive that grant. So just wanted to acknowledge that.
Thank you, Member Loeffler Kemp, for lifting up our new ED. Do we have any other discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Member Loeffler Kemp.
I am making a motion to hire the Head Start Key Hire Director candidate. I'm sorry. That was my practice, okay? I am making a motion to hire the new Head Start Key Hire Director candidate.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Sadowski. It's moved by Member Loeffler Kemp, seconded by Member Sadowski. Do we have any discussion about this great hire for our district? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Bam. Okay. Last but not, nope, we got a couple more. Okay. Next, we have the approval of the Technology Director contract. Member Sadowski.
I move to, up for the approval of the Technology Director individual contract.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Member Sadowski, seconded by Member Lofald. Do we have any discussion on this great agreement? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Bam. All right, last but certainly not least, Member Banks.
Thank you. I move resolution, number HR-7-22-4113, which is a resolution, Education Minnesota Duluth Integration Specialist. Resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 709, St. Louis County, Minnesota, that the collective bargaining agreement between Independent School District 709 and the Education Minnesota Duluth Integration Specialist, a summary of which is in the hands of all school board members, be approved and adopted for the period of July 1, 2025 to June 30, 2028, inclusive, and that the chairperson and clerk of the school board be hereby authorized to execute said agreement on behalf of the school district.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Member Banks, seconded by Member Loeffler Kemp. Do we have any discussion about this great contract? Great job. My only discussion would be to thank our HR team and our administration for getting this done, including, and of course, our integration specialists. We thank them. They are absolute critical members of our community and support a lot of our students in a lot of our schools. So I just want to lift up the work that's been done on both sides. Do we have any other discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of Resolution HR 7-22-4113, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Nicely done. Moving on to the last couple things. Do we have any questions or any other information that the board members would like to share with our community or our fellow board members? Great, we have no sharing today. So what we're looking for right now is a motion for adjournment. Oh, Member Williams got there first. Who's coming in with the second? Second. Member Sadowski. It has been moved by Member Williams, seconded by Member Sadowski. Do you have any discussion on that? Take some time, really soak it in. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.